After arriving home, Xiamo waited for little Sue quietly. He opened the box and took out the last few bills from the box. The bills were dirty and wrinkled. Xiamo raised the bills flat and looked at the security line. They are extremely genuine. They are not lying. Mao Zedong and his comrades are very close together. They closed their mouths tightly, with their eyes stern and their faces worried. Even great men can hardly be nice or kind when they are on the money. Xiamo stuffed the bills into his pants pockets and looked at their bed. The sea blue surface doesn't feel any liquid at all. There are wrinkles everywhere, and there are traces of wind. Xiamo picked up a long hair from little Sue's pillow and tied it around his fingers. Xiamo began to memorize little Sue's appearance. Xiamo couldn't remember it. Xiamo was wondering how he couldn't remember little Sue's appearance. Living together every day, that face surprisingly turned out to be a blind spot in his memory. They quarreled together last night, but he couldn't even remember her look. But the image of little Sue was slowly returning when he thought of the quarreling. Her drunken state, her tone of speech, everything came to life again. I even went to the company to apologize to her. Xiamo said to himself. I even want to give her a freaking surprise. Little Sue returned 1 hour later than ordinary times. As soon as she got home, she tried to look happy, as if she hadn't quarreled yesterday. And life has always been like that sheet, nice and peaceful under the sunshine. Little Sue held 2 packs of 555 cigarettes in her hand and walked behind Xiamo quietly. She walked with her head stretched out like a chicken. She lifted 2 packs of cigarettes behind Xiamo. Xiamo turned around and saw little Sue's thoughts at a glance. Xiamo decided to push along with the current. He also smiled happily, and his cheeks were full of love. Xiamo took the cigarette and tore the cigarette seal satisfactorily. Xiamo lit a cigarette, took 2 big sips, and said, At least we are in line with the world in terms of smoking. Little Sue listened to his tone and guessed that he had passed. Little Sue's 10 fingers were crossed together, pressed against Xiamo's shoulders, with her chin resting on the back of her hand, and deliberately said coquettishly, What to eat for dinner? Xiamo smiled without answering and said, Don't buy such expensive cigarettes next time. Little Sue said, Today I worked overtime. The boss is willing to pay. Otherwise, I wouldn't buy it. Xiamo said, Your boss, I've seen. He's a lame man. Little Sue knew that he was talking nonsense, so she said angrily with pulling her voice, Nonsense! My boss is not lame. Someone is good. Xiamo heard Little Sue's words and never spoke again. He couldn't stand the tone of boss. His face looked bad. He finished the cigarette with a few sips. Little Sue glanced around, knowing that he hadn't cooked yet. Little Sue took the apron, had nothing to say, and said with a smile, Today there was a little humor in the evening paper. It was so ridiculous that a painter and a policeman went hunting. They were hiding in the grass. They didn't move for a long time. Then a hare jumped over. The painter was about to shoot, but the policeman jumped out and said loudly, Stop! Police! Little Sue finished talking and laughed, and after laughing, she realized that Xiamo's face had tightened. The humor made Xiamo's face more serious. Little Sue looked at Xiamo's face, and her smile dropped little by little. Little Sue said, What's the matter with you? Xiamo said solemnly, Your humor was wrong. It was the painter who went hunting and shot back 2 packs of cigarettes. Little Sue lifted her apron innocently, unconfidently. Little Sue said blankly, "What's the matter with you?" "I went to the company this afternoon to apologize to you." A train rushed forward abruptly, shocking all ears. Xiamo's pretentious composure was finally crushed by himself. Xiamo kicked over the easel in the sound of the train's clang. His expression was like a derailed train. Xiamo stretched out his finger, pointed at the door, and shouted, "You f***ing lied since you got off this door until tonight. Now, you only a few days." The baby's cry was heard from next door. Master Gen gave a loud and dry cough, which with all the meanings. Xiamo moved his finger from the door to Little Sue, lowered his voice, and said, "It's a mistake from beginning to end." This static state lasted for a long time until the train went out of hearing. This static state just frozen in place. Life is like this. Choosing to fail appears to be a certain static. Little Sue turned her face to the side, resting her chin on her left shoulder, with her entire face covered by hair. Xiamo put his hand down. At this juncture, Xiamo said the words that immature big boys often say. "What can you explain?" Little Sue was extremely sad. This is a mistake. It has been a mistake from the beginning. Little Sue blurted out her sad words. Little Sue forgot about Master Gen's dry cough just now. She hung her hands in place, clenched her fists, and shouted, "What am I explaining? Who am I of you?" Little Sue sat alone by the bed. She did not close the door. The door remained the same as it was when Xiamo left, half opened. Xiamo went very impulsively. He kicked the door open with his foot. The door bounced back from the wall, only half closed, maintaining the ambiguous pattern of home, which was spacious. When Xiamo went downstairs, he must have missed the last stair. The last sound he gave Little Sue was a set of flustered footsteps, which were the flustered footsteps when he regained his balance after being unbalanced. Little Sue's hearing was extended long, but Xiamo did not leave any lingering sound to her hearing. Then Little Sue's hearing was shrouded by night, full of railroad tracks, full of metal silence. Little Sue turned off the light and lit a cigarette with the electric stove. The scarlet glow of the cigarette butt hinted with a certain kind of loneliness and gave Little Sue an unexpected promise. A cigarette is a good thing. This peacemaker comforts whoever he catches. Little Sue felt fragile when she smoked. A fragile nation must be a nation with a large number of smokers, and a fragile era must also be an era with a large number of smokers. Little Sue sits in this space of failure and era. Smoke is everywhere. It started to rain at night, a kind of net-like floating between rain and fog. Standing on the balcony, Little Sue realized the rain from the black reflections on the surface of the rails. It is unknown whether life is hidden at this moment. It is unknown whether it is in a dry or wet place of night. Little Sue wishes that life can stop there. The only thing she can bear right now is the static life. The rain at night came down eventually in the late half of the night, and everything was cool and clean in the morning. The more it rains and the cooler it will be. The morning after the rain was surprisingly clear, and the autumn was very cool and fresh. Master Gen went to work when Little Sue was brushing her teeth. Master Geng nodded politely to little Su. His eyes were somewhat complicated, but he didn't ask anything. Master Geng is a good person. He didn't ask anything. Little Su was afraid of his asking. Her life can't stand any questions. Master Geng carried that railway wrench and went to work. Little Su did not dare to look back when she brushed her teeth. She knew that Master Geng would definitely look into the room when he passed by the window. Little Su didn't look back. She suddenly learned to cover her ears to steal the bell at a delicate juncture. Little Su has locked herself in the room all morning. Little Su lit a cigarette. With boredness, Little Su picked up the paint that Xiamo left and squeezed them out one by one. The broken canvas was colorful and enchanting all of a sudden. Little Su stepped back after squeezing all the paint, feeling that she was a painter. This painting really resembles the streets in a city. Blah blah with a prosperous scene, bizarre, noisy, and wealthy. Little Su gave this painting a name, City. Little Su picked up the pen, chose a good spot, and decided to draw a house for herself. Little Su only drew one or two, but broke it, and a small piece was messed. Little Su gave up her house and just wanted to change it back. She drew a few more, but it got worse and worse. Little Su watched her masterpiece turn into waste in a blink. She was extremely unsatisfied. Drawing and drawing made the painting into misery. Little Su was in a bad mood. She just scribbled with the pen, and the bright colors were gone. Only a piece of gray was left. This city is so fragile that a wish of the home turns the prosperous faction into a piece of dust. Juan's voice came from next door. Juan said, "Go get some soy sauce." Little Su guessed that Juan was talking to Little Belle. Juan said, "You go or not?" There was no sound. Little Su can imagine the look in Little Belle's eyes. Juan said, "You don't go, then don't even have lunch." Little Su saw through the window that Juan went out alone, and she carried an empty soy sauce bottle in her hand. The baby's cry came soon after. Little Su didn't pay attention at first, but Little Su immediately heard that voice was suspicious. Little Su rushed out and walked to the door of Juan's house. Little Belle was handling scissors, standing stupidly in the middle of the hall. There was something crazy flying fast across her face. Her brother was laying on his back in bed, dancing with his hands and feet in the air. His cry was not loud, but there was an extremely terrifying power in the cry. Little Su rushed over, and Little Su heard the sound of scissors falling to the floor when rushing over. It was quivered twice by the cement. Little Belle's brother closed his eyes tightly. His face flushed. His crotch was full of blood, which was a big blur. His little thing is gone, with only a bright red fracture. Little Su turned around, and Little Belle looked at her with a half-opened mouth. Little Belle's hand stretched out, and her little brother's little thing was in her hand. Screw-shaped, very short piece. Little Su hurriedly looked back. Little Su held on the north window of her home and saw from a distance that Juan was talking and laughing with a woman in the alley. The soy sauce bottle in her hand was still empty. Little Su cried out, "Juan! Juan!"